Hey guys, so we're going to try and draw some animals. Today we're going to try and do a horse. So I have some cool books that I thought we could look at to try and get an idea and maybe follow along. This one's pretty cool because it here shows you like the most basic steps of drawing an animal, and so obviously this animal doesn't look very realistic when you get to the bottom, but it has all the parts. So it's saying first you put the body, then you need to know where the muscles of the legs go, then you can put the legs. You need to know where the rib cage is, like the main part of the body, and then like the head and the feet. And so if you put that all together, body, muscles, legs, rib cage, head and feet, and then it goes on to show like doing those steps works for pretty much any animal, just the shapes change. So I thought that was really interesting and kind of a smart way to do it. It also shows about thinking of the animal's body parts as just boxes and then going and making them the real shape. So if that's easier for you, you might want to try it out. But it might be pretty confusing if you've never done it before. So let's look at horses. So any animal is going to be kind of confusing to draw just because there's a lot of details in an animal. They move, they have lots of body parts. Drawing people is hard too. So when we look at drawing a horse, some main things we can kind of think about are its body shape, okay? And that it has 4 legs and it's kind of a horizontal body, right? So if we look at like the bones, the skeleton of a horse, we can see that it's got a big rib cage above its front legs, and then it's got hip bones back here. So we can kind of think of those as 2 areas of the body. There's the big rib cage and there's the hip bones. So when we go to draw the horse, we can think about this shape and this shape coming together to make the body shape. Now, if we were to go into more detail, we'd start to see like what way do the legs bend. That's very important. Horses have these kind of knobbly knees, so it's easy to see where the leg is bending. This is kind of a step-by-step of if you want to use a box to draw them. I think that might be a little bit tricky. We're going to try to do it a little bit simpler than that. But this book has lots of cool images of the horse in motion, which I think is really nice, especially because you can see the bending of the legs. So if you want to draw a horse running or jumping, you kind of need to know what way the legs are going to bend for that to happen. See, this is pretty cool. It shows every position the legs are in when the horse is moving. So it kind of looks crazy, but you can see all the ways you would have to draw a leg if you were trying to make the pose of the horse moving. We've got some poses, and again the way the leg bends. So we're going to have to think about, we've got the rib cage, we've got the hip bone, and we've got the muscle of the back leg. We've got this big curve of a muscle, and so that's going to be part of our picture too. When we're thinking of drawing the horse, we need to think about, okay, the back leg of the horse kind of connects into that rib bone, that hip bone circle, because of this big muscle that holds up the weight. And then of course, if we're going to get in more detail, there's different kinds of horses that have different face shapes and different body types. It might be a little too complex for us right now, but that's kind of cool too that that's in there. Alright, let's look at our other book and then we'll get down to trying to draw a horse. Alright, so right away this one's talking about the movement that you see. Like animals can bend their bodies, jump, run, and so you're not always going to draw them perfectly still. Okay, so looking here, we can kind of see that same idea. We've got the body of the horse, the rib cage area, the hip bone area, the neck, and the legs with these knobby knees and the big muscle on the back leg, right? So let's look at some of the details about horses. Okay, so here's from the top, and we can see again rib cage, hip bones, and so we can get the basic shape of the horse. Here's the muscles that you would see on a horse. This is like breaking it down into pieces. So there's the horse's neck, there's the horse's front legs, there's the horse's chest, horse's back legs, face, ears. Kind of taken the horse and separated it into pieces. Okay, and here's the movement of the front leg. When the horse picks up its leg, its knee bends forward. So kind of like if it was my finger, that's how the horse's leg bends. Movement. Horse jumping all around. Okay, so what I think we'll do, we're going to try and draw a simple horse just standing. Which one shall we look at? Maybe from this book. Yeah, okay. We'll try to draw horse just standing. And we'll try to draw this horse doing this kind of classic rearing pose that everybody likes. So first, let's draw just a horse standing still and straight, not making any particular pose. So when we're drawing, we want to think about the parts inside that make these outlines happen. If I just go straight to doing outlines, I may end up with things not connecting quite right because I'm not thinking about how much room there has to be for the bones and the muscles. So let's draw a very light guideline. So that means I'm going to just barely touch my paper, and I'm going to put an oval for where the rib cage of my horse is going to be. Now remember, I just barely drew that in so that later, if I want to get rid of my guides, I can erase them. If you draw hard, you're not going to be able to get rid of your guidelines. Okay, so I've got the oval where the rib cage is. I'm going to move back a little bit and I'm going to make a circle next to that oval that's smaller than the oval, and that's going to be the hip bone. So I've got the hip bone here and the rib cage space here. So these are part of the basics of the anatomy of the horse like we talked about. Okay, so now I can kind of start to make my lines to show this animal. I'm gonna go around and I'm gonna let this go down a little bit because there is a little dip in between the rib cage and the hip bone. There's a little dip, so I'm gonna let my line follow that dip. And so now I've got the back of my horse. Okay, now on the hip bone we know that there's this big muscle. You can see it here and here, and on this side in the sheet that actually shows all the muscles, you can see it there. So we want to add, coming off this hip bone guide, we made a large curve showing that muscle. Now for the rest of the leg, we can see it swoops down to the hoof, okay? Because on the back leg, it bends backwards. We didn't really talk about that as much. We talked about how the front leg bends forwards, like my finger. The back leg actually bends backwards, so it's a little different than what you'd expect. So let's make that line that comes down, just a smooth line, comes down off that muscle you made. Try not to make it too long. I've made mine maybe a little long. There. Okay, so now we're going to do the hoof. The hoof is a nice triangle-y shape. So we'll come out, over, a little bit up, finish it off. Okay, here's a tricky bit. We've got to come in for the ankle. It gets a little skinny, so we'll make a little bump there. Okay, so then the bottom goes up to the knee. Knee's kind of a bump here, a little knobby knee, so we'll go up to this bump. Alright, and then we're just going to make a curve that connects to the back of the horse. Alright. Now, for the belly and chest of the horse, we've got this smooth line that connects the rib cage area to the hip bone area. So we'll just start a little ways down on that muscle we made, and we'll just go right underneath the rib cage we designed. There, we've got our horse's belly. Okay, let's make a front leg. The front leg needs to go down the same distance as our back leg, and it's a little bit angled in. So let's say I'll take a line from here down and a line from here down. They get a little closer together as they come to the knee. Okay, then we've got that knobby knee, so let's put a bump both sides. Mine might be a little low. It's okay, as long as you don't draw hard, you can always alter, but there you go. Yours might have been right. Okay, and then we're going to come down again, even skinnier. Now we're going to make the horse's ankle here. So come together, kind of an angle. And we're going to make the hoof, so we'll go down, out, back in. Put this diagonal to show where the hoof is. Looking good. Let's move over. So the horse's neck is very wide when it starts. It's the same size as the chest, and it thins out to become the neck. So we want to start just on the edges of the body, very wide. And we go up, getting a little thinner as we go. Okay, now for the head, we can see some basic shapes. The head is kind of a triangle, but it's got a big jaw muscle that's a circle. Okay, so we can rough in that circle very lightly, like we did the rib cage and the hip bone, to give us an idea of how the head's going to be shaped. And we can rough in that triangle. Very light. When you're doing these sketching lines, don't even push your pencil on the paper. Just let your pencil drag across the page so that it's barely touching it. That's super important. Okay, so let's kind of follow that curve we made. Alright, and we'll make a little bit of a straight line, following that triangle. Alright, then we're going to make the end of the nose. I'm just going to kind of make a semicircle here that covers this triangle we made. And then we'll go back up to the head. Oh, curve around to meet the neck. So guys, this is a basic horse shape. Now, obviously we have some problems. This does not look done. One, I'm going to add his ears, eyes, nose, mouth. That will really help. So going on top of his head, the direction of the ears kind of changes depending on the feeling of the horse. So the ears could go up. If they're scared, the ears can go back. This one's kind of attentive, the ears are going forward. So there's lots of ways the ears can be. I'll just make mine kind of neutral, sort of going up. So make an ear there. And we'll put a little one in the background. You only see half of it. Alright, put a little eye here. Little nose here. We're only going to see one eye and one nose because we're looking at the side of the face, right? And a little mouth there. And remember, a horse's mouth does not open super wide, not like a dog. So their mouths only go a little bit further than their nose. Alright, a few more seconds for details. I'm going to add some lines to show a mane. So you can kind of rough in a mane there, and one for a tail. Alright, now the last thing, my horse is going to fall over because it only has 2 legs. So very speedy, I'm just going to kind of copy this line that I've made for this leg. So See how all I did was just copy, and that is its back leg. I'm gonna just color it in so it looks like it's behind. And same thing for this one. I'm just gonna copy this line for this leg, color it in. Alright, so guys, this is a very basic horse that we just drew. You know, we took the most basic steps, and we've kind of simplified it a little bit. You know, it doesn't look super realistic, but it's a pretty good first step if you're trying to make a realistic horse and this is your first try. So, try this out. Talk to y'all later.